Hello, everyone. Well, this week was a big one in Canadian politics. And yesterday, Daniel, Paul, and I, we took part in our final Canadian election podcast. And we'll give you a highlight of that conversation to kick things off. Then we're going to look at what's next on 4 of ARPA's big issues. Mike takes a look at preborn human rights. We'll have Daniel address euthanasia and assisted suicide. John looks at what's next in the area of hate speech and freedom of expression. And Levi will wrap things up with a look at gender and sexuality. It's Wednesday, April 30th. And this is Quick Updates. As you all know, we had a federal election on Monday. The Liberals are back with a slightly bigger minority government. Paul, Daniel, and I, we had a chat about what happened and what's next. Here's a clip.
In one word, how would you describe election night? Daniel, let's start with you.
I'd say probably unsurprising, based on the recent polls. It's surprising, I guess, if you were looking at the polls 3 months ago, but on recent polls, the Liberals were actually polling a fair bit higher than they actually ended up getting. But I think it was unsurprising in the sense of, I think a lot of people kind of expected a minority government coming out of this election.
Good. Ryan, Daniel already took the easy choice there. What would be your one word?
Mine would be just different. It was really a 2-horse race, and we haven't had that in a long time in this country. And as a result, you saw huge popular vote numbers for both the Liberals and the Conservatives. I was just telling you guys just before we hopped on that, for example, the popular vote that the Conservatives had, that would have been enough to win every election since 1988. Go to our YouTube or other podcast providers, or go to arpacanada.ca/election 2025 to watch the full episode. Mike is with us to talk about what's next in our effort for a law protecting preborn children from abortion.
The 2025 federal election is over, and once again, a federal election happened without any of the major political parties committing to do anything about abortion. In fact, the leaders of the Conservative and Liberal Party both committed to doing nothing to protect the lives of preborn children. This ought not to leave us in despair. There is much that we can do as a pro-life movement. Not only did 90 pro-life MPs get elected this week in the federal election, we also have major opportunities at the provincial level to protect preborn children, and that starts next week. Next week is Life Week, where Marches for Life are going to be happening in capital cities right across the country, giving you an opportunity to stand up for your preborn neighbors. So please continue to stand with us, to join with us as we advocate for them, as we advocate for their protection. And let us also be assured that how this all ends up is in God's hands, our sovereign God. It's our job to witness to this injustice, and we're going to continue doing that as long as we have energy and time.
Thanks, Mike. Let's head over to Daniel with an update on assisted suicide and euthanasia.
Hi everyone. As the House of Commons prepares to return to Ottawa and our new government gets to work, we can continue putting pressure on the issue of euthanasia. In the last Parliament, members of Parliament from the Conservatives, NDP, Greens, and some of the Liberals all opposed the expansion of euthanasia to those with mental illness. The United Nations recommended that Canada repeal euthanasia for people who are not dying. We're hoping to send a petition to MPs on that issue soon, asking for the same thing. Canadians across the country have asked our government to care for those who are suffering rather than ending their lives. As we go into this new session of Parliament, we can continue putting focus on this issue. We can continue asking our government to change the law, and we can continue to pray that God will bless our efforts.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Let's head back to Ottawa and hear from John.
Hi everyone. You may recall from last Parliament the Liberals' Bill C-63, which is going to have 2 parts. One, the online harms component, some of which we supported, and the other part was the kind of amendments to hate speech law, both in the Criminal Code and in the Human Rights Act. Now the Liberals have promised to bring back both those parts. In the last Parliament, they split the bill, and this, again, in the election, they've promised to bring back both parts. We don't exactly know how they'll do that. Seems like they'll have the NDP support in that. But what we did see in the last Parliament was all the pushback that they were getting from groups like ARPA and civil liberties groups and others did seem to give them some pause. They didn't force the bill through. They did take some measures, again, to kind of split that bill. So we're hoping that in the next Parliament, with enough, again, engagement from the public concerns that this law might be misused to censor advocacy on certain issues, that we'll see a better bill the next time than we did in the last Parliament. So please stay engaged on that issue. We'll keep you up to date with any developments in this Parliament on that topic. Thanks.
Thanks so much, John. Finally, we'll wrap things up on the other side of the country with an update from Levi.
Another set of issues that we're going to be keeping an eye as ARPA in this upcoming Parliament are the issues of gender and sexuality, specifically conversion therapy and medical transitions for minors. Now, unfortunately, a majority of the MPs just elected are in favor of both of these radical worldviews. And so we don't expect there to be much change or repeal of Canada's conversion therapy laws or limiting medical transitions for minors, but we need to continue to be a salt and a light and a witness on both of these issues. And we need to keep an eye out in case the government in a minority situation where things are chaotic and fluid and changing around, that these bills don't get even worse. So, for example, the Green Party suggested that we should increase enforcement of Canada's conversion therapy ban, a concerning development, and we hope that that doesn't move forward in the coming Parliament, and that's not something that the government picks up on. But continue to keep these issues in your prayers, and we'll continue to advocate on behalf of Reformed Christians from a biblical worldview on gender and sexuality.
Thanks for that, Levi. Clearly, there is yet a lot of work to be done. Regardless of whether you're disappointed or just ambivalent with the results of this election, we can all take comfort knowing that Jesus Christ remains King of Canada, and that it is God who raises up and tears down rulers. In Psalm 146, verse 3, we read, "Do not put your trust in princes, in human beings who cannot save. When their spirit departs, they return to the ground. On that very day, their plans come to nothing. Blessed are those whose help is the God of Jacob, whose hope is in the Lord their God." Now, the last verse of this chapter underlines things. Reminds us that while we have premiers and prime ministers and members of parliament that rule over us, well, here's verse 10. The Lord reigns forever. Your God, O Zion, for all generations. Praise the Lord. That's it for quick updates. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.